And talk about mitigating risks. We always say at GTM, because he's been one of our flagstone supporters, if you are going to the US, never leave home without talking to a US attorney. And there's none better to advise you on how to scale in the US than Thomas Thorelli. Tom, tell us more about mitigating risk.
I have been a lawyer here in Chicago for over 30 years, helping small to medium-sized UK companies doing business in the United States, trying to help them minimize their exposure to legal risk when they do business here. I've been asked to provide 5 pointers. The number one pointer is the commitment issue. Don't come to the US in hopes that you'll find something that's going to make a difference for you. You've got to be committed and take the time. 2, use lawyers in the United States. We use lawyers in a preventive capacity here in the US before we do business. That's the way you should do it as well. Number 3, control negotiations. Always try to have something in writing with whoever you're doing business with, even if it's only an email from you that explains exactly what your position is in the relationship. And control those negotiations when you do enter into contracts by taking responsibility for preparing the first draft of the contract. There still remains today the so-called power of the pen. And if you think you can save money by having your partner in the United States or customer or supplier prepare the first draft of the contract and save some legal fees, you are off on a very bad foot. That means you don't have enough money to invest in the US. You got to protect yourself when you do business here. The 4th area is clearly intellectual property. Our firm does a tremendous amount of intellectual property work because most of our clients are small to medium-sized and they need to distinguish themselves from their competitors quickly and easily. And usually that's with technology. And if it's not technology, it's at least trademarks. And if you haven't registered your trademarks anywhere, please take me up on a free Zoom call to discuss that. The last thing, and it's interesting that Mark mentioned it only a few moments ago, start thinking about setting up a U.S. company a lot sooner than you normally would. Number 1, from a regulatory standpoint, as Mark mentioned, from relationship with subcontractors, manufacturers, etc. But beyond that, it creates instant credibility. Americans want to do business with other Americans. And if you have an American company, you'll be amazed. Americans will think that you're now in the US. It costs very little to set up and to maintain a company in the United States. From a liability standpoint, it's smart to isolate all of your activities in the United States to the United States. And you can only do that through doing business in the US through a U.S. company. Those of you that are considering getting visas to live and work in the United States, and there are a lot of good reasons to start considering about that too. You can't get a visa to live and work in the United States easily unless you have a U.S. company, and that U.S. company needs to be up and running. So that's yet another reason to attract people to work for you in the United States. For goodness sakes, set up a U.S. company. You sure don't want to employ people in the United States from the UK or elsewhere in Europe. Would be delighted to get on a 1 hour, up to 1 hour Zoom call with you for free, just to answer your questions, because in a forum like this, you're not going to get many answers. You're going to get sales pitches, of course, and that's what these things are about a lot, but you really should take the bull by the horns and learn as much as you can about these issues. And I'd be happy to get on the horn with you and discuss that. Thank you very much, Mark.
Tom, thanks for that. And just to add to what Tom says, we'll be doing a whole series of what we're going to be calling virtual trade missions next year. These are going to be one-to-one intensive curated sessions with people like Tom, Frazier Dieter, Paratore in Phoenix, Andrew in Indiana, Dewey in DC. So this is really a flag-waving exercise for some very intensive and curated things to come. Tom, one of the things you just mentioned, and it also relates to the guys we're going to introduce to next, is Delaware. What's this all about, Delaware, Tom?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. This will only take 10 minutes.
You got a minute.
Yeah, okay. There are 50 states in the United States, and there's a choice of 50 different states in which to incorporate your company. Even if you're going to be doing business in Illinois, our home state, we're in Chicago, or California, or elsewhere, my advice to you is to not consider setting up your company in the United States in any state other than Delaware. And there are lots of reasons, and you've heard lots of them, but here are three that you don't generally hear. One, credibility. You tell people we have a Delaware C corporation and don't think about an LLC either, please. Okay? Talk to Fraser and Dieter about this. They'll give you the guidance on the tax aspects, but we set up 95% of the companies we set up are C corporations in, and 98 or more are in Delaware. Credibility is number one. Number two, if you're looking for investors in the United States or somebody to buy your business, whether it's in the UK, Europe, or the United States, the buyer is going to be very pleased to see that you set up your company in Delaware because they know Delaware law, their lawyers know Delaware law, it's very flexible law in Delaware, so that's a smart move. Three, we have 50 states, three different business laws, 50 different business laws in the United States. Each one of the people that you do business with is going to prefer to do business under the laws of their own state, but almost everybody is prepared to do business under the laws of one state if it's not their own. And I think by now you can guess what state's laws that is.